The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, dedicated to creating access to financial well-being for local people, businesses, and communities. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, we'll howl for the produce at Coyote Hill Farm in Bernardston, where two former researchers have turned to agriculture.
But first, we're going on a quick trip.
Which it turns out is harder for folks with less means.
And surprising no one, but a recent study points out exactly where the speed bumps are for folks in Hampden and Hampshire counties and the travels they take in daily life.
Khalees, we go on a lot of field trips for what we do here, but we are on a field trip walking distance from the NEPM studios to our neighbors right down the street, which is, neither of us have been in this building despite driving by this building all the time.
No, we just drive by it because it's on the way to our building.
And it wasn't a far way away, and it was easy to find. And it is Wayfinders. Oh. And we are here with Keith Fairey, who's the president and CEO of Wayfinders. If people aren't familiar with what Wayfinders is, what is Wayfinders?
Wayfinders is a housing and community development organization that serves Western Massachusetts. We provide programs, we develop housing. In addition to the housing work we do, we also do policy and advocacy work. We have a subsidiary called Common Capital that helps people start small businesses. And what we're really focusing on is improving the local economy, strengthening housing options, and supportive programs for people in our region so that we have a thriving region.
And it was interesting because the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has partnered with Wayfinders to do a really interesting study, and the people that conducted the study is my old friend who used to be on my show on the river all the time, Rich Parr, and the organization, the MassINC polling group, which is Boston and Northampton based. Is it only Northampton based because of you, Rich?
That's the dirty little secret. When we say that I run the Western Mass office, it means there's literally a room in my house.
There's one guy who works out in Western Mass dealing with all this stuff.
Still counts.
Can you tell us about what this surveyed?
Yeah, so this is called the People and Transportation Project, and MassDOT put out a RFP for it, and we applied and got it. And the charge was this: find a community organization that's working with like an underserved population in the state, partner with them to do research, focus groups, surveys, et cetera, to understand kind of what challenges those folks are having getting around. So we, as I said, we won the project, we were excited for it, and then we were like, okay, well, who are we gonna talk with, right? Who are we gonna work with here? And the CEO of MassINC is from the housing space, came to us from a housing organization, and he's like, well, what about, CDC? What about Wayfinders? And I was like, well, perfect, it's very close to where I live. Keeps the commute down for me. So we reached out to Keith, and it made sense for us to work together, and what we ended up doing was surveying and doing focus groups of people who get services from Wayfinders to understand kind of what their challenges are. And then we partnered that with like a more representative survey of lower income folks who live in Hampden and Hampshire as well. So you kind of get a little of both. You get the broad look, but then you get this really deep dive on like a group of people who have some really significant challenges, both in terms of housing, in terms of economic challenges, and then, as we learned in this study, a lot of transportation challenges as well.
Is there a difference in your mind between low-income folks and the Wayfinders folks? Because that was part of when looking through the study. Like, why differentiate those two? I'm assuming a lot of the folks that come through Wayfinders are low-income folks. So why is there a difference between those two groups that were polled? Rich?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what we saw in the demographics of the people who responded to the two studies is everybody's in that low-income bucket, but the Wayfinders folks are even kind of it's like when you have a map and you have the inset of the map that goes into super detail on one area. That's kind of like what this study does for us. It lets us see in a really specific way folks who are even lower income, who are a little bit more diverse racially, who tended to live more in Springfield. We had a lot more Springfield respondents in the Wayfinders study than overall. So it gives us this ability to really kind of like drill down even deeper in and see people who have like some really significant challenges.
Keith Fairey, CEO of Wayfinders.
And one of the things that the survey proved out, just in terms of looking at the demographics of the people we surveyed, both from the region and from Wayfinders, is that people who we are serving at Wayfinders, they're more likely to have a medical condition. People who we're serving at Wayfinders are likely to be taking care of a child or a dependent family member at home. So they have some other challenges and needs that weren't represented in the regional study in the same way.
And even though gender is a spectrum, the respondents for Wayfinders was overwhelmingly women.
That's typically what our client base is, and that doesn't mean that there aren't men in the household or men in their lives, but they tend to be the lead applicants and people who are really trying to help make ends meet every day for their family by accessing our programs.
It's interesting that the Department of Transportation wanted to use a housing agency as the vehicle, pun intended, to talk about the troubles with transportation. So let's talk a little bit about what your survey found out. 1,600-ish people, right? That Mark Latanzi over here, our good buddy who used to work with us at the river and works at Wayfinders now, emailed all of them to get them. I think about half of those respondents coming from Springfield itself, and really mostly Hampden County based or Hampden, Hampshire County based?
Yeah, I say mostly Hampden. I mean, that's just sort of the nature of the population of these two counties. Hampden is much bigger than Hampshire. So if you're even in the representative survey, most of the respondents are coming from Hampden. But when you're looking at just the Wayfinders sample, which is again 1,600 people who have gotten some sort of services from Wayfinders in the past year, these are folks who get housing vouchers, who might have been in a first-time home buyers program, they might actually live in Wayfinders housing, they might be in a shelter program. So again, there's a lot of kind of housing-related needs here. The number one finding that we saw was the cost of getting around, the cost of transportation is a really big issue for them. And these are folks who are mostly drivers. Even in the Wayfinders sample and in the bigger sample, most people are driving. The Wayfinders folks are a little bit less likely to drive, a little bit more likely to use Uber or Lyft, or maybe to use the PVTA buses to get around. But most people are drivers. But what was interesting was that they're much more likely to say that the cost of getting around was a burden for them, and to say that I would say that their access to having a car and being able to use a car is much more precarious than for the bigger sample.
We're talking about a new survey that the MassINC polling group has released with Wayfinders based in Springfield, right down the street from the NEPM studios. And it's kind of connecting the dots, pun intended again, Department of Transportation, with the housing difficulties. And, you know, this is a big urban setting. There's a lot of people that live here. And a big part of it, as you mentioned, was PVTA. Now, this survey was done all last year, 2024, between sort of the spring and fall of 2024, prior to when PVTA decided to be free. I guess you can perceive from the data, is that important to people that it is free, given that it wasn't free when the survey was taken, but it is free now?
I think always things like lower fares or no fares help people, especially our clients who are low income, having trouble paying for the cost of everything. And when the cost of everything has gone up, as we know, and we've been struggling with stubborn inflation, that is a helpful thing. That said, their challenges are kind of multifold. These are a lot of people with medical conditions, some of them accessibility issues, so getting on a bus or getting around in any form is a difficult challenge. And that's within the region, and then if they have to get outside of the region, which sometimes people have to do for different programs or services. And so what was really interesting is looking at all the kind of, the survey talked about the difficulty making trips and the different types of people who had to make different types of trips, whether it was to school, to go get groceries, to go to a medical appointment, or to go to Boston.
That was the one I was surprised at. I was surprised at how high the difficulty for getting to Boston, how important getting to Boston was for the people as part of the survey.
Yeah, some of our clients, you know, especially during that period of time, some of our clients who have responded may have been people who were new to this country and who were needing to access immigration services, which were immigration and naturalization services. Appointments were often only in Boston for clients. Some of them were people who are in our emergency assistance shelter program who may have been placed here but may have family networks and other things that they need to access in other parts of the state. So getting back and forth can be very difficult for those families and very costly.
So that brings us to the big thing that has been the news for many years now, West-East Rail or East-West Rail, depending on who you want to ask about how to call that. Rich Parr from MassINC Polling Group, what did the people you survey have to say about wanting East-West Rail to get from Springfield to Boston more easily?
I would say people in both surveys, the Wayfinders survey and in the more representative survey, were pretty enthusiastic about this idea. There was some skepticism, I would say, in the focus groups about, is this going to happen? They've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
Are we finally going to get this? But people said that they'd like to see it happen, and they said that they'd be willing to ride it if it happened. You know, Going back to what Keith was talking about, the reasons why people go to Boston, a big thing we heard in the focus groups was medical appointments, right?
I hear they have good hospitals there.
Exactly. So sometimes it's hard to find a specialist in Western Massachusetts. Sometimes you might have to go east, or sometimes you may choose to go east because that's where the best specialists are. But we heard people in our focus groups talking about how they were getting cancer treatment in Boston and they couldn't get to an appointment because their ride wasn't available or something got rescheduled. And it's just, it was really kind of heartbreaking to hear that, like, the level of need is so high, and it is the most challenging trip that people have to make, getting across the state. So if we did have East-West Rail, I think it would help people in that regard if they can kind of get some of those medical appointments scheduled with the train.
Not to mention that, like, one of the other things that's brought up in the report is the condition of the roads, and the Pike is terrible. So if you're already in a precarious position with your car, you're kind of taking a risk with the Frogger of potholes that are on the most populated highway in the state trying to get to an appointment. Mm-hmm. If something happens to your car, like, not only are you late for your appointment, you no longer have a ride. So, like, getting on the train makes it that much easier.
And, you know, when you think about East-West Rail, we always think about sort of getting to Boston, but there's a lot between here and Boston. One of the things we work on with people is economic opportunity. How do you improve your economic opportunity? Where are the jobs? And so as we've seen, and we looked a little bit east, but not all the way to Boston, you see Worcester is booming, right? We've got medical appointments you can get in Worcester as well. You've got a booming economy there. And so when we think about creating more opportunities for people to find employment that they can get to, East-West Rail can be a key asset for this region, opening up employment opportunities.
I like trains.
More coming up with Keith Fairey of Wayfinders and Rich Parr of MassINC polling group about their findings in the recent People and Transportation Project report, including the impact and utilization of PVTA and the weight transportation has in the daily lives of the survey takers themselves.
And later, we'll get up close and personal with the trees, crops, and greenhouses at Coyote Hill Farm in Bernardston.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Eastworks, 4 floors of makers, artists, and entrepreneurs located in the Mill District in East Hampton, where community happens. Learn more at eastworks.com.
We're talking about the People and Transportation Project. It's a report that has come out from the MassINC polling group, the Boston and Northampton-based MassINC polling group, and we're with Rich Parr from MassINC polling, as well as Keith Fairey from Wayfinders, the president and CEO, which is right down the street from our studios in Springfield. And the folks that work with Wayfinders were a part of this survey. It's a 170-page long actual report that, I did my best to try to understand. It's been synthesized. A lot of what people seemed to say was that they were by and large happy with the regional transit authority, the PVTA, but they could benefit from more buses more frequently and at different times. So if you work a 9-to-5er, you may be able to navigate the PVTA in a way to your liking, especially if you're going from Springfield to Springfield, say.
But let's say you're working from like 12 until 8. There's a good chance that there isn't a late bus for you to get home. You've got to figure out something else.
Let alone if you are in Franklin County and you need to take the FRTA to the PVTA to Springfield. Was there anything surprising about that part of the survey from either Wayfinder's perspective or from your perspective from MassINC polling, Rich?
I would say not surprising for us, as we
And your Wayfinders, Keith Fairey.
As Keith Fairey again from Wayfinders. So not surprising for us when we work with our clients. One of the things they talk about, yes, is the cost of housing, but often transportation comes up in those discussions. And there are times when where people who are connecting to jobs, for example, and that car doesn't work anymore, and so they can't afford the repair, right? And so we're looking for ways to help them afford the repair. And when you look at the PVTA schedule, yes, it's wonderful what we have. Yes, it's wonderful that we have free fares now, but it doesn't go everywhere people need to go at the times that they need to get there. And especially as we look at our folks, many of them are working second or third shifts. Those are not times when that's going to be readily available to folks, and people get stranded. And people talked about experiences being stranded, right? Or being afraid of being stranded in certain situations.
Which gets back into the reports talking about how difficult and how dangerous it feels to walk around here, too.
Yeah, Khalees and I just walked the block from NEPM to here, and there were people racing down Main Street in a way that I can see why it would be intimidating to walk if you had to go a long distance especially.
Or bike.
Yeah, that was one of the interesting differences between the Hampden County and the Hampshire County results, I would say, in both.
Because if you don't stop for a person in a crosswalk in Hampshire County, everyone in every location comes out and pillories you.
Yeah, that's
a little bit different in Hampden County.
So you would think Springfield urban area more walkable, but that's not really what we found in the results, is that people were much less likely to be walking here. And then if you go up to Hampshire County, and a lot of the Hampshire County responses were coming from Northampton because Wayfinders has some housing in Northampton. People were much more likely to talk about walking and biking a little bit more. These were not huge modes in the survey, I would say, but they were definitely more represented up there in Hampshire County than Hampden. So yeah, there are some challenges. People talked about in the focus groups not feeling entirely comfortable on the street, whether it be because of cars or traffic or because of crime or bad lighting, lack of crosswalks, reckless drivers. Those all came up as obstacles to walking in the survey. Yeah.
One of the things that I found interesting in the survey, and something that I'd never heard of before, is we've seen the rise of ride sharing, of Uber and Lyft, but there is something called Hood Uber that is based in this area that people are relying on. What is Hood Uber?
Relying on it more than like biking or walking or like several other things that are. I mean, like, the human ingenuity is amazing.
What's Hood Uber?
Well, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So when, this community is not well served by the things like Uber and Lyft, but they exist, and people hear about them, and they look for ways to fill a gap for people in transportation. So, there's a range of ways that people talk about them, Hood Uber and other communities, dollar vans and other things that people employ that are kind of off the normal radar of the transportation infrastructure, but provide critical connections for people that they can't find otherwise. So the concern about them is that they're unregulated. Their concern is that they may be unsafe at times, and it's hard to track if there's something happens to somebody on those things, what can happen to them. But it's really one of those things where it's filling a gap in the system that we don't have here. If you try to get an Uber, we find this even for our employees, from this office to try to take you out of Springfield to go to somewhere, maybe you'll get one, but it's very difficult. You may wait long wait times and other things like that. So it's filling a gap in the system.
And we've seen that with guests on our show, too. When they're done being guests on our show, they're sitting in the lobby for, like, longer periods of time than you usually see for an Uber.
Because they're waiting for an Uber. If they were part of Hood Uber, could be a different story.
I mean, maybe no.
Your take on Hood Uber, Rich Parr from MassINC Polling Group?
I think we had the luxury on this project of working with Wayfinders to, like, craft. We had their involvement from the beginning throughout all these different stages of writing the survey. So one of the things we did before we even got to sending out a survey was we did a bunch of focus groups with Wayfinders clients to sort of understand what are the questions that we're not asking. And this was one of the questions that we weren't asking. People started talking about this Hood Uber thing, which is basically a Facebook page that you can join, and then
It's like 13,000 members or something like that,
It's a crazy number of people who have signed up. I don't know how many of them are actually active. But this came up in a couple of the focus groups, and we're like, we've never heard of this. This is fascinating. And so we had to put it into the survey and see what percentage of people are actually using it as a mode. It's like it's in the single digits. I wouldn't say it's competing with many more people are still using Uber and Lyft. But as Keith said, there's a lot of drawbacks to this potential. It can be cheaper, it can be a little bit easier to get a ride, but you're taking a lot of chances in terms of, like, are you going to be well treated by the person? Are they even going to show up for you? Are they just going to take your money? Is it a scam?
Is it going to be the same money that you were promised when you started the ride as when you finished the ride?
Right. Plus, I saw one of the persons that filled out the survey said, are they just picking you up to flirt? And nobody wants that. This is a really interesting survey that has been conducted. The Transportation Secretary, CEO Monica Tibbetts-Nutt, has commissioned this as of 2024 through the lens of Wayfinders and the MassINC Polling Group to talk about the People and Transportation Project and how we can mitigate some of these troubles when it comes to transportation. And we've talked about trains, and we've talked about buses, and we've talked about ride sharing. What are some other things that came out of this survey that were surprising to you as the CEO of Wayfinders, Keith Fairey, and somebody who's mostly dealing, as a community development corporation, dealing with housing? What did the survey teach you that you didn't know about before, about specifically the people that you're serving through Wayfinders?
Well, to put some numbers of things, for example, the financial burden that people feel when they're thinking about accessing or using the transportation that they have. For people from Wayfinders, almost half of the people who said it was a very big financial burden for them, compared to about 18% of the people in the region who said it's a very big financial burden. So, and we see that with our clients, and when we look at also some of the survey respondents, one of the big things is people are missing appointments, right? Not able to get to appointments for doctors, not able to get to school, not able to get to work. But a large part of it is the financial burden, whether that transportation doesn't work, the car breaks down, Hood Uber or the regular Uber costs a lot of money, and they just don't have the cash. When we look at, poverty in our region is higher than poverty in the state overall. In the Pioneer Valley, most of which makes up, in terms of population, is Hampden and Hampshire County. You've got about 15% of the people who are at or below the poverty level. And so they're very price sensitive to anything. And so, a repair, a costly repair, a costly trip to an appointment is something that they really have to consider every time that they open their wallet.
I do a lot of surveys, but it's rare to have the luxury of so many respondents within one specific income group, and it allows you to do stuff with the data that you're not normally able to do. So, Keith had touched on this earlier, but this idea that your access to a car is much more precarious for the Wayfinders clients. We can look at the data and we can see these tend to be maybe a single parent type household with a kid, maybe with somebody with a medical condition as well, and they're more likely to only have a single car as opposed to multiple cars. So what happens when that car goes down, right? And they're telling us they can't afford to do that repair. They're telling us they don't have somebody else in the community they can get a ride from. So there's a social connection issue that's happening as well. So those folks are really in a tough spot, and that's why we had, I think, a quarter of the people in the Wayfinders survey told us that they've been stranded at one point trying to get around the region because they were, got a ride somewhere, but they weren't able to get back. I mean, that's a tough thing to have in the back of your head all the time when you're trying to get around.
You have these kind of focus groups, there are at least 4 that are in the report, post-survey, and all of them have recommendations that I think the survey takers are then coming up with for these problems that they're seeing with transportation. Were any of those solutions that they were coming up with things that Wayfinders already had on the table, or how are they taking them into consideration?
We're always taking client responses and input into consideration. So things like helping them figure out how to pay for transportation, that's something we already do for our clients, especially those who have the least. Those are our clients who are homeless in our emergency assistance shelter. This year, we actually helped Northampton promote increasing their bike share and the return to the Valley bikes there. So we're looking at different things in different modes. Different things work for different people. Through our employment support services program, we set aside money every year to help people pay for things like car repairs. In some cases, we've even, when we found somebody, helped them get a great job, we've even helped them acquire cars because we know that is the linchpin to greater economic mobility for folks.
This was commissioned by the Healy-Driscoll administration's Department of Transportation. I'm assuming they have now received this report. Do you get any feedback from them when this report happens? Do you see any actionable items that they can work on, or have they said that they will work on any of these things that have been gleaned from this survey?
I would say that the folks that we've been working with, and it was the Office of Planning within MassDOT, so they're really interested in this for understanding when they do future projects. We got an earful from people about which specific streets have specific potholes that need to be addressed, so that's all been kind of sent up the chain.
Yeah.
We've shared this report before it came out with PVTA, so they understand the complaints that people have. And I have to say, I think PVTA is doing a great job, but it's just a hard region to serve, right? Because we've got these big cities with kind of very rural areas connecting them, and the trips are longer for people, and it's harder to make all of those connections. I think the message is getting through to the people who need to see it. I think that the state's been pretty happy with this report. A lot of the things that people were telling us in those focus groups at the end was just we need more information. Some people would take the PVTA if they understood how to use it. Mm-hmm. Making the PVTA free is important, not just from an economic perspective, but it also makes it so much easier for people to use.
And faster, I saw from the survey, too, because you're not waiting for people to pay every time they get on the bus. And it has been free since November of last year.
Yeah, so just not knowing that you don't have that barrier of, do I have correct change, do I not have a car, do I need a pass or something like that? It makes it so much easier for people to try it out as an option. And if they try it out as an option, they might find that it actually serves their needs pretty well. I think a lot of people in the survey weren't aware of where they could get it, where they could take it to, just sort of the basic mechanics of that. And then, people were also looking for stuff like, gee, could Wayfinders just give me a list of like reputable mechanics?
Yeah.
Because I got my car, I need to fix it. This guy's charging me an arm and a leg. I want to find somewhere else. So again, just giving people some information so they can make good choices. I think that's an important part of what we learned too.
Well, I, for one, am a big fan of the PVTA because if you're a Spanish speaker, it looks like there's a swear written on every bus. I'm also glad that they took Khalees and my face off of a lot of those buses.
Oh my God, it was the worst.
And I'll also give a shout out to the FRTA, which for English speakers is fun if you rearrange the letters. But in reality, the People in Transportation
Public
Project.
transportation is the true sign of a healthy city, and the ability of it to meet the needs of its population just shows the health of your community, says somebody from Boston who really believes in the public transportation system and really resents the fact that she needs a car.
Yeah. And I, for one, who've been stranded at Fenway Park because the game went late and the MBTA doesn't run late enough for the people there. So similar problems all across the Bay State, but it's really great that the Department of Transportation commissioned this study through the MassINC polling group with a Boston and Northampton-based organization with Rich Parr, who's been joining us, and a wonderful opportunity for Wayfinders here in Springfield to get more information about the clients that you serve, about some of the things that they are going through in addition to their housing struggles, the transportation struggles. Keith Fairey, the president and CEO of Wayfinders, thanks for inviting us, neighbor down the block from our NEPM studios.
Stop by anytime. Glad to have you.
I do when I have to plug in my electric car in an emergency situation only. Transportation, it affects us all.
Well, plus, I'm very much looking forward to when East-West Rail starts, and I don't have to drive to Pittsfield. I can just take the train and meet you and Tony there.
There we go.
And we're at the hub right here. We're right across the street from Union Station.
The full 170-page report, People in the Transportation Project, can be found on the Mass DOT's webpage. And thanks again to Keith Fairey from Wayfinders and Rich Parr from the MassINC polling group for taking time out to chat about these findings with us.
And now we head to the top of a hill where the coyotes gather and two farmers are getting the most out of the land far from their former lab-based lives. A tour of Coyote Hill Farm with Ervin and Gloria Meluleni.
Meluleni
Thank you!
is next.
It's next!
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping Western Mass families achieve greater energy independence through solar power, battery systems, and air source heat pumps. Northeast-solar.com.
Having problems with them?
No, this is our daughter-in-law's.
Oh, okay. I've heard some people that I know who do a lot more canning than I do have problems with the seams with them this year.
This year?
Yeah, like this year where there's a lot of bubbles, there's weird glass seams, and they're breaking and really dangerous for pressure canning. But even if you're not doing pressure canning, having just structural problems with the ball jars this year.
We better go back to the Masons. They know how to do it.
If you got Masons or Wex, you're probably they've been having better luck with those. Yeah, just check the seams before throwing them in the...
One more thing to be worried about.
Yeah, right. Well, it's time for another Local Hero Spotlight with Jennifer Kaur, the new Executive Director of CISA, the Local Hero folks, community involved in sustaining agriculture. And we are at the top of Coyote Hill in Bernardston with Gloria and Ervin Meluleni. And your story about coming to farming here is really, really interesting. But let's start with the farm. So you started Coyote Hill Farm back in 2003?
Yes.
This was a lifelong dream for you, Ervin. Yes. What were you doing before 2003?
We worked in Boston at Harvard Medical School, and Gloria worked at Brigham and Women, and we were lab techs. And I got an early retirement when I was 55, and Harvard was nice enough to give me health insurance until I was 65. So it worked out.
Yeah. And what were you doing at Brigham and Women's, Gloria?
Research.
For what?
Cystic fibrosis, looking for a vaccine for people that have cystic fibrosis.
Still working on that, or is it?
That is ongoing.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it's not an easy thing to figure out.
No.
Yeah.
And what were you doing, Ervin?
I was doing histology, study of tissues.
What kind of tissues?
It was animal tissues. It was we were the path lab for all the animals that research uses at Harvard, and if anything was sick, it came through our lab, and we'd discovered why it was dying or why it was sick. And yeah, it was great. I loved it for.
And that's why you're a vegetable farmer now?
Yes.
Talk about this segue from medical research of various types to farming.
So much
It
science.
is science.
And then
Both science. Yeah.
But this was a dream of yours.
This was a dream all the way from when I was a kid, working on a dairy farm.
Where was that?
That was in Monterey, a little town in the southern Berkshires, 600 people. 3 dairy farms. I worked on 2 of them.
And you get swept up in this dream, Gloria, or was it your dream as well?
I did. I got swept.
Are you currently still swept? Living the dream?
I am. Yes, I am. I'm still here. Still loving it. Yeah.
Why to produce instead of dairy farming?
Dairy farming is hard work.
You were retired already. So I want to do work, but not hard work.
How dairy people do it.
Yeah.
It's very hard work.
Yeah.
did you contemplate dairying for a
Never.
while? Okay.
No. It's always,
there, I guess.
always vegetables. Yeah.
So you were already familiar with Western Mass, having been from the Berkshires.
yeah.
So what made you want to come here to Bernardston?
Well, we found the land. We started out in Worthington, which is a little hill town, with my partner, and we were young hippies, and we were gonna do, commune. Oh, we had great ideas, but our females didn't get together well, and so I sold out to him, and we came out here, and found this land for like, what was it, $8,000.
Wow.
For 27 acres. Yeah. So
And you were saying this was all forested when you got
all
here.
woods. Yeah.
Still very forested.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it is.
We got about
Yes,
3
definitely.
acres cleared.
Can we walk that way and see
Yes,
the beds
please.
and stuff?
Let's go
It's so
for a little walk.
beautiful. Such a nice scene down there.
yeah, you've got this house over here, which your son lives in?
Yes.
And he's also, what's he doing? He's working in Boston too, right?
He's working at Boston College in development. Yeah.
Not just the way that things go. You start in academia and then you end on the farm.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
I have to say, a lot of the postdocs that I worked with were envious. They would love to work on a farm.
Well, you've got plenty of land. You could start that commune you wanted to start there, Ervin. Bring out all the doctors.
That's right.
Even more interesting at this stage of life, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to note all of these weeds volunteer on their own.
We can call that biodiversity.
Yes,
Celebrate.
yes, it's good for the pollinators.
Yes. Gestures broadly for the pollinators.
So you're still doing your CSA here on site? Okay, great.
Yep.
And you have, everyone picks up here on the farm?
About how many people do you have in your CSA?
20, I think it's.
this year.
22.
I know it's not a lot big number, but it keeps us busy.
As like a neighbor to you all. I know your CSA is a highly coveted thing. Lots of people want to stay with it, and these are treasured spots. So 20 is not nothing.
What's, say, available this week for the
We have a
CSA?
great bag this week. We had melons and raspberries and corn and peaches, carrots, and Gloria puts together a bouquet of flowers every week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
We're walking by your apple orchard here right now. Yeah.
When you bought the land, were the trees here? Because apples are.
They look like this.
Oh,
They all look like oak trees and things like that.
These were planted by Ervin.
In those earliest of years, these are
Yes,
25-year-old
as soon as he
trees.
got
Brought
here.
them in
Yep.
79. So it's been a long time.
Oh, so you had the land for lots of years before you started the farm.
Yes, this we bought in 79.
Now $8,000 makes a lot more sense. I thought it was like $8,000 in 2003. What the heck?
what a steal! And like this, and the trees also make more sense. And I'm like, you got these trees to establish in 20 years like this? That's
I
amazing.
know, they already look like a very well-established old apple orchard here. So well done. Way to think ahead there.
So about half our apple trees produced this year, and about half didn't. I don't know why that is, but we are organic, and so the apples have a lot of blemishes.
Love it.
The ones that are producing seem to be producing a lot. You've got this one tree that's just covered.
Yeah, that's a golden delicious apple.
We're at Coyote Hill Farm in Bernardston with Ervin and Gloria Meluleni and a local hero spotlight with Jennifer Core from CISA. Was this place called Coyote Hill Farm before you got here? You name it.
No, we named it.
Yeah.
Because we, the coyotes would gather on that hill, and we would watch them with their cubs, and it was nice to see. So we called it Coyote Hill Farm.
We're going to stop our daughter-in-law here in a minute because I want you to see the tomato harvest.
Oh.
She's got it in the back.
We're hitchhiking now into a John Deere tractor. We're from the radio. We mean you no harm.
Well, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Jill.
Jill? Monty. Nice to meet you.
Please,
Nice to meet you.
Jennifer,
Nice to meet you.
I love how your tractor is stocked. You've got bug spray,
yeah.
you've got baskets, like you're all
You
set.
got work gloves, you got all of it. What do you got in the back here, though, Jill?
Tomatoes.
Oh, those are pretty.
Yeah, you got some heirloom tomatoes. You got some cherry tomatoes.
Look at the size of that one, Monty.
Well, that is a giant tomato. A tomato as big as your head, they say.
Out a lot of water.
It's been so dry, so I'm imagining that they're going to be really kind of
No,
extra
they're-
sweet.
They are delicious. Yep. Yep.
And these tomatoes are actually called coyotes.
Coyote Hill Farm. So they're branded tomatoes. Trademark. Meluleni.
What day is your pickup for the CSA?
Sundays and Tuesdays. And then we have 2 markets that we do, one in Northfield on Thursdays and one on Saturday morning in Bernardston.
Did you always want to be a CSA farm, or did you start out?
We didn't know what a CSA was.
Yeah.
And we had friends who said, can we come by get a bag? And we said, sure. So we started off with 2 people. It's different than most CSAs. They still come and put their $20 under their card every week instead of paying up front.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
that's the way we started.
So you're doing Northfield and Bernardston Market, both like very local, relatively like
we're,
small.
we're the only vegetable vendors in both markets.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a very big deal in terms of like place making and the vibrancy of a market. So.
And getting fresh local vegetables from a farm to those 2 communities, especially if you're the only ones doing it. Jill, Khalees has a warning for you about your ball jars.
Oh,
Like alert, alert, alert.
it's not alert, it's just that be careful. So I've heard things about the manufacturing of bell jars this year. Check your seams. People have been having problems with them exploding.
Yeah, if any of the tomatoes are going in there, you don't want to have a tomato emergency.
Yes.
What keeps you wanting to do this? I don't want to ask how old you are, but we know you retired at 55, and we know that the farm started in 2003, so we can do some math here. What keeps you wanting to do this? Farming is hard work.
It is, but we have great new help.
You got Jill married into the dream.
Yeah. So no, it's good. It's good work. I mean, it keeps you healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's outside.
You can do it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful work. I wish more people could do it instead of being in offices.
Yeah, for sure. And somebody who's been in labs and offices, you can see you have the actual real-time life experience to tell us the right way to do it. So when I'm editing this at my desk at any PM, I'll think, I should be out there picking apples right now.
Anytime.
What about Jill as the daughter-in-law of the Melulenis? Is this a career path for you going forward?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. And I don't think they realized how much I would love it when I moved out here. And
Where did you move from?
Boston.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we just moved out here a year ago. My husband and I. Yes.
What were you doing in Boston?
I was a waitress.
Okay.
And my husband is actually in Boston now at his job.
Yeah.
He will be back working from home, but we both enjoy it very much.
So he does some farming too?
Yes. Oh, he does all the heavy lifting. We have him.
So he gets the benefit of having both a desk job and a farming job. So he can really
As we've mentioned, this is the family way. You start in the lab and you grow into the farm.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about your practices and sort of what is important to you two about the way that you farm.
Well, we are organic, and I'd love to go no-till. We buy one load of compost from Martin Farm.
Yeah.
Which is expensive.
That's where all my compost goes, so you're welcome.
We have to fight the critters. There's a lot of deer, a lot of rabbits, raccoons you'll see up here if we go up here.
Yeah, let's go.
We fence the corn.
Oh, and you have another greenhouse back here.
Yeah, the feds actually gave us a grant for this. They were giving grants out back in those days.
Uh-huh. Now they're giving grants out and then taking them back.
Yeah.
Was it an NRCS, like
Yes.
an equip? Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Back when the feds understood where food came from, and that maybe you
that
want to
6
encourage
months
people.
ago?
I
7
know.
months ago?
Weird.
Great peach year, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, has it been a bad peach year for other
I
people?
think it depends. I think it was hit or miss.
Oh, yeah, because I've heard a lot of good things about peaches this year, and
yeah.
I've had a lot of good peaches this year.
It's been dry, so the disease hasn't been.
We've had a very good year after many bad ones. Just no harvest recently, but this year we have harvest,
Yeah.
and the peaches are delicious.
It feels like the peaches are one of our most vulnerable crops. Like,
Yes,
it really
they
is
are.
literally like there will be 0 peaches from here to Georgia, or like it could be the greatest peach year ever. Yeah.
Yep, that seems to be nature anyways.
It's great because folks are getting that whole diversity of fruit,
Yeah.
veg, and flowers here.
Yeah.
It's great.
Do you have a favorite season? You know, you're doing winter markets, you're doing farmers markets, you got the CSA. Is there a time of year when you're
Winter.
like, because then you get to really relax?
I get to relax. I get to read.
I'm going to say winter is our favorite. It used to be, oh my God, it's winter.
Winters
Now we're
in
like,
Boston
oh,
were
great.
horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny, but it's true.
But we like all the seasons.
Yeah.
They're great.
Anything else you want to show us?
You want to take a look inside the greenhouse?
Yeah, sure.
More with Ervin and Gloria Meluleni at their Coyote Hill Farm in Bernardston as we check out their greenhouse that harnesses the power of the sun and their very low-tech CSA.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
If we have coyotes, we have no deer. But if you have coyotes, you have no melons.
Because they love the melons?
Yes, they love the melons and they love pears. And they will actually pull pears off the trees.
Wow.
They really like them.
Do they howl wildly when they get to the melons and the pears like they do when they get a
And
kill?
it's scary too.
It
when
is
they-
scary as all get out. Oh my word.
Oh yeah, it's really. Ugh.
Yeah.
Haunting.
It's
yeah, your
haunting.
windows are open and.
Yeah.
So then we have a dog. If the coyotes start, oh, now the dog has to start. And he actually tries to mimic the howl. It's very funny. He's turning into a coyote. I think he wants to join them.
We're at Coyote Hill Farm in Bernardston with Ervin and Gloria Meluleni in a local hero spotlight with Jennifer Core from CISA.
Speaking of, we don't end up at a lot of farms that have both orchard and actual produce. How different is it maintaining the orchard from maintaining, your regular fields?
Oh, yeah. Well, they fit together pretty good because you don't have to do too much in the orchard during the summer. And then harvest season comes and you have to start picking in the orchard, but things are slowing down in the fields. So they fit together pretty good.
Nice.
You see the cracks in the greenhouse? We had horrible winds last winter and they blew off the panels.
Oh, wow.
The screws had worked themselves loose over 20 years. It was terrible. We woke up one morning and looked down and saw the panels had flown off. The poor tomatoes were shriveled.
Oh. I'm just noting the passive solar design on your house here.
Yes,
That's
yes,
great.
yes.
Really thoughtful.
Yeah. The same with our greenhouses. As we go in, you'll see we have 92 55-gallon drums on the back side.
Oh, yeah, wow.
And that keeps the heat in. It doesn't freeze in there with no heat, except if it gets down below zero, then it'll freeze in pockets.
And then do you heat it then? Or do you have a heating system if that needs to happen? Or
We have a wood stove, but it doesn't work. Pump up the temperature more than 5 degrees.
these barrels they'll heat up when
Yeah.
it heats up in here and then they'll retain the heat?
Yeah.
That's a really cool way to do it. I've never
they're
seen
all
anybody do it like that.
black,
Yeah, they're all black.
Yeah.
It smells so tomatoey in here. I love it. And the basil over there, too. I feel like I'm embodied by a Capri salad.
And I'm curious if there's other ways that your science former life influences the practices you have on the farm, because we don't see a lot of farmers doing this.
What about you, Gloria? Did you bring your science to this?
No, this was Ervin. He I think has been reading about, passive solar. He just wanted to try it, and it's this. You can see by the dust, 20-something years old. It's
Yeah.
still no maintenance. It just sits there.
You don't even have to change the water, probably, right?
No.
Never change. No, just
It's an interesting scientific study.
Yeah, I wonder what's going on in there.
Other folks learning from you? Have you had opportunities to mentor other farmers who are interested in this?
We actually had some tours come by from Greenfields Community College. We had a couple of professors who would come. They were very interested in the solar aspects of the greenhouse and our house, which is also passive solar.
Yeah, which meaning there's no panels. You're just using the available sunlight and creating interesting actual greenhouse effect, or like these barrels here, to radiate heat in a way. That's cool. Which, when you're worried about solar and the precious metals that go into making it, there are some other things you can experiment with that are little to no influence on the planet.
And have existed for hundreds of years.
It's almost like we need the sun to survive, and if we learn how to use it
like
better.
Other folks before us maybe figured out how to harness that energy without all of this extra stuff.
Yeah. Says the guy with the electric car out in the and the solar panels on my house 15 minutes from here.
I want to show you this.
Whew. It's immediately 30 degrees colder.
Oh, wow.
The cold storage in here.
Yeah, and this is where our CSA picks up.
Oh,
when,
cool.
One person is late.
Take a picture of that name.
We won't shame you, Dee Dee Shill. But it's
Is that
funny.
not Dashel?
Yeah,
Oh, Dashel. Oh, yeah. It's hard for me to read that. So it looked like a lowercase d.
Wait, so I feel like I'm letting out the cold air, but
Yeah, you are.
This is also. Oh, okay. So you have a cool bot type.
Yeah,
situation.
a cool bot. Keep it at 55.
It's funny that all their names are here, and then their $20 goes right under their names.
Yeah.
It's like the Tooth Fairy for CSA.
It is.
So fun.
So folks come in here, grab their share. It's all self-serve. They leave their cash under their name, and they're off.
They're gone.
Then you don't even have to talk to them if you don't want to talk to people.
Why do I think that's not the case, though?
That is just, we like bumping into them when they come,
Yeah.
but it's freeing for us. We don't wait around,
Yeah.
and they come whenever they can,
nice.
and it all works.
So you have a very limited CSA. Does that mean that if somebody wants to become part of your CSA, they have to fight one of the current members, Battle Royale / Squid Game style, and then take their space?
We've not had this
no.
issue. But we would make room for sure.
And I assume you have a lot of regular farmers market customers that you've had for years.
Oh, yes.
Actually,
Some very
we
loyal
do, yeah.
customers.
Yep.
It's sort of like
Gratifying.
we are a state of pretty small farms, really, and small and sort of medium scale farms.
That's
but
true.
these small farms make a really big difference because that's all economic activity that's sticking right here and keeps circulating, and it's
healthy,
real,
too.
it's palpable.
It is healthy, too.
I wanted to be able to make a living when I started out here, but it wasn't possible to, fortunately I had a little bit of retirement from Harvard, and it made all the difference.
Right.
But just for two people in 1 acre, it's just
We
not
would
possible.
never, no.
We made $30,000, which this day and age is not livable on.
Right.
Really.
Which goes to show you how hard it is to be a farmer if farming is something that you have either grown up doing or you've decided to do from Jump Street as opposed to another career and then moving into farming.
Yeah.
So, farmer kids, get a real job and then become a farmer. No, I'm just kidding. Do whatever you want. Follow your dreams.
I mean, that is the lesson that we've learned here today.
Or I think it's also part of this conversation about what do we pay for food and how does that how does that prioritize in our whole list of things, and we have a whole national conversation to have about that because something's a little out of whack if it's that hard to sustain
It
yourself.
would be nice if, a couple could make a living instead of having a farm that has to be, 20 acres like Piccadilly or Red Fire. That, they can make a living because they have workers. But just for two people to make a living, I think it's very difficult.
So then the model that we see so often here in the Pioneer Valley is one person who works off farm to get the benefits and pay the mortgage, etc., and the other person, and that is a challenge for growth and sustainability, and it's lonely for that person too that's on the farm. So.
Are you speaking from experience?
No, I mean, well, yeah, and we see it over and over and over again. It's a really common model.
And I think about what you said regarding priorities, there also needs to be a shift where just because we are able to get things from super far away doesn't mean that that should be the standard for like bringing into the markets what we have. Maybe we don't have tomatoes in December, like maybe we just don't. And like maybe we don't have certain things at this time of year in order to try and support the local agricultural community a little bit more. And that's both on consumers and on middle markets that are like supplying produce in a more easily accessible way in case you don't have a car to get to a farm.
100%. And thinking about the two markets that you two are engaged in, I think as a community and as a society, thinking about farmers markets as places to get your food and not places to necessarily just get a kebab and chit chat, which I think is wonderful and very attractive, but we need to get our food from our farmers markets also. And that's
More people thought like you.
If only you ran an organization that's sheer goal was to get more people to think like that.
again to Ervin and Gloria Meluleni at the Coyote Hill Farm in Bernardston and Jennifer Kaur from CISA.
And thanks to the Stone Coyotes, local heroes, for providing some of the soundtrack, as well as Hiatus Coyote.
Yes, because
We leaned into the coyote thing there. Well, I was a little bit frightened to put in that audio clip of the actual coyotes howling.
really, I think I kind of like them. I kind of like the howl.
It's always terrifying to me, especially when I used to do the morning show and it'd be like 2:30 in the morning, and from a distance in the woods I could hear that menacing howl.
They used to come on campus of my high school every once in a while, just every once in a while, because you wouldn't get a whole lot of them where we were. We were weirdly isolated, surrounded by security wide field in Colorado Springs. But you'd hear them like late night, early morning sometimes, and it was just kind of part of the landscape. I was like, oh, I guess I'm in the West now.
And it's also good to know coyotes equal no deer, coyotes equal no melons.
Yes.
That's my takeaway from Coyote Hill Farm in Bernardston. And thanks again to
That's
all
the
those
tithe
folks.
you pay. Tithes must be paid for services rendered.
Yes.
The coyotes keep the deer away, and you pay them in melons.
We're going to have a lot of farms over the next couple of days.
Farms are important. They feed us all.
They sure do.
They sure do.
We're lucky to have so many small and large farms in our area, or medium-sized farms in our area.
Medium size. There's not a whole lot of space in Massachusetts to have large farms, and that's
Right.
actually part of the conversation that we continually have.
And that we will have tomorrow, because every year the congressman from the 2nd Congressional District takes a couple of days to see our current agricultural landscape in person.
And on the next Fabulous 413, we'll tag along with Representative Jim McGovern as his farm tour makes a stop at Foxtrot Farm in Ashfield, which is one of the many farms that lost an important USDA grant earlier this year. We actually talked to them about it in February.
And this is a foxtrot, if you are a fan of that dance. We will also see tomorrow how language takes unexpected turns with word nerd Emily Brewster, and words that we use in contradictory ways.
Or ways that are a little counterintuitive to their original meanings. We get into it. We'll explain better tomorrow, we promise.
And if you have a question for the congressman or for the word nerd, either or, the Fab413 at nepm.org.
And we'll ask on your behalf, because we kind of love doing that. We love when you have questions, too. It's not just us all the time.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Clee Smith. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.